Dementia has been something that's been really a big part of your life.
I didn't want anybody I cared about to ever fade from this life that same way.
What did you do at that point?
All I could do was try to bring them joy and love in those moments.
When you think about what makes you happy, what comes to mind for you?
People experiencing dementia can still have meaningful, joy-filled lives.
Welcome to Unexpected Happiness. I'm your host, Ariel Steele. If your life looks good on paper, but something still feels off inside, you're not alone. This podcast is about finding real happiness in the middle of real life, especially when things don't go as planned. Dementia has been something that's been really a big part of your life. It sounds like even many decades ago. But more recently, you've been working in this area and bringing light to a topic that people often feel is very heavy. But it sounds like your grandmother was your very first inspiration to be paying more attention to this disease that we all are so scared of. Tell me about your grandmother.
My grandmother was a remarkable woman. She grew up in a sod house on a homestead in western Nebraska. She was what my cousin called the gentlest cowgirl you ever did know. She was precious, and I loved her dearly. And she journeyed through life like a lot of older folks do. The ranch got to be too much that she and my grandfather lived on, so they moved to the brand new independent living in western Nebraska. He passed, and her skills started to change. So then she got moved to assisted living. And in assisted living, when I would call her, she oftentimes wouldn't answer the phone, which had not been her norm. And when I'd go to visit, my observation was, why is she spending so much time in her recliner? Why is she spending so much time in her room by herself? And I didn't understand it, and it troubled me.
How old were you at this time?
Let's see, I would have been in my 30s.
Okay, so this isn't a 16-year-old trying to figure this out. Like, you're a grown woman at this point, and you're able to assess the situation.
And I'm an occupational therapist. But I didn't have much experience with elders other than my grandparents were my heroes. Oh. So then her skills declined some more. She got moved to a skilled nursing facility. And I remember my brother saying when he went to visit her, she said, "Get me out of here." And it is still the way that a lot of people experiencing dementia journey through end of life. But what I watched with my grandmother, it broke my heart. Because it just didn't feel right. So years later.
When you said it didn't feel right, tell me more about what you observed that didn't feel right to you.
I didn't feel like she was happy. I didn't feel like she had a good quality of life. She wasn't around people she knew and loved. She was a woman in an institution. And I didn't feel like that's what she deserved.
So then, did that persist until she passed?
It did, yeah. And she passed. My youngest was just a year old when she passed. So it was years of that journey, of that steady decline. Yeah.
And then what did you learn from that?
I learned that I didn't want anybody I cared about to ever fade from this life that same way. In fact, I promised myself I wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah. And who were you thinking about when you made that promise?
Nobody in particular. Just, I can't let this happen to anybody else.
Okay. And did you take any actions at that time yet? Or did that just come later?
I did not take actions. Mm-hmm. I was a busy mom.
Of course. Your oldest was a year old.
Right. My youngest
was a year old.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, your youngest was a year old. Of course, you weren't able to do much about it then.
So I was doing professional things, but I wasn't working in senior care. Mm-hmm. So that didn't come until about 2007 when I took a job with a rehab company in one of the Northern Colorado senior communities.
Okay. And what did you observe there?
I observed that we are doing a really lousy job of honoring our elders and caring for our elders. And the next many years, I worked in that domain. And the things I heard were, we've been put in a corner, we've been shipwrecked, we've been dumped, I'm in prison. And these were lovely senior communities. Not everybody said that.
Okay, so the residents are saying, we're shipwrecked, this isn't working. What were you hearing from the administration of these organizations?
I didn't have too much interaction with administrators, but I do know that one story is I was helping a lady with some dressing skills. She was needing help dressing, and I was using that as a therapeutic opportunity. And I remember we took off her shoes, we took off her socks, and her toenails were so long they were growing down over her toes. And of course, I was like, wow. So I went to the administrator of the community and I said, can we please get her on the list when the podiatrist comes? Oh, yeah. Podiatrist came and went. A couple of weeks later, I'm working with this lady again, therapeutic things that we're doing, and took her socks off and her toenails were the same, longer. And so I went and bought a pair of toenail clippers.
Oh.
And I bought a nail file, and I went and I trimmed her nails. As soon as I trimmed them, she put her feet out like this, her toes, and she went, oh. And so my observation of administrators is they spend a lot of time in their offices. And I'm not being critical. I'm analyzing what I watched.
Right.
And thinking, could we be doing this better? Mm-hmm. But my observation was they spent a lot of time in their offices, a lot of time in meetings. And I think the greatest thing we should be doing with our elders is knowing them and bringing them joy, happiness, a sense of meaning. And I just didn't observe that happening from the leadership on down. And there were some lovely caregivers who loved people and loved well. They most often were spread between taking care of 8 and 24 people in one shift. Wow. So it's hard to provide care and have relationship in a situation like that. I'm not an administrator. My suspicion is they're frustrated with staffing that's stretched thin. I hear that all the time. I get that. I understand that. And it's the reality is it's not a very high paying job. So sometimes you're working really hard to get the bodies that you need to care for people when the situations can be pretty tough. Yeah. So I try to be empathic to that.
Right.
But I also observe, I think we could do better.
Right. So you're in this situation working in an organization that is just not able to provide the kind of care that you believe that these elders should have. What did you do at that point?
Well, as an occupational therapist, I would usually have 45 to 60 minutes with people to engage in therapeutic purposes. And at that time, all I could do was try to bring them joy and love in those moments while accomplishing skillful therapy. But in 2017, I learned of a woman named Judy Cornish who developed a method called the Dawn Method. And so I had a conversation with Judy, and I thought, I think I'm hearing something that's giving me hope that it can be done differently.
Great. So when you say Dawn Method, does that stand for something?
It does. It stands for the Dementia and Alzheimer's Wellbeing Network.
Okay. And what did you learn about that?
I learned that people experiencing dementia can still have valuable, meaningful, joy-filled lives. And that when they do, then so does their caregiver team, their family. So as I began learning this method, I saw, wow, there are these tools that I can begin to implement to create a different scenario around a different narrative, really, about dementia.
Yes. That's so encouraging to hear that, because for most of us who either have parents who are at the age where any day you could hear those words that mom has dementia, dad has dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever it might be, that's what we seem to be quite afraid of. And so to hear that the people experiencing that condition can have joyful lives and can still have meaning and purpose is so encouraging. So I'd love to tell me more about that.
Yeah. So one of the things that to me is significant about the Dawn method is it was developed by a woman with no medical background.
Oh, wow.
And she's an intelligent woman, was an attorney, moved to small town Idaho to semi-retire, and moved across the street from a woman who was always out watering her beans and tomatoes. So Judy went across the street, said, "Hi, my name's Judy." And this lady said, "Well, hi, my name's Mary. I'm glad you've told me your name. You're going to have to tell me your name again. What I'm best at is forgetting. I've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's." Judy and Mary become friends. Mary's daughter comes to town, goes to Judy, says, "Hey, so nice that you and my mom have struck up a friendship. I think I'm going to have to move mom to that facility up the hill. Her memory's getting really bad." Judy said, "You know what? I haven't taken a job yet as an attorney. Let me check in on your mom." So pretty soon she's checking in on Mary, and she's checking in on this person's father and this person's husband and this person's sister. And she realizes that she has this work to do. So she spends 5 years spending most of her waking hours with people experiencing dementia. And she began to observe patterns. Then she got everything she could get her hands on, read everything about dementia, and recognized some of the good points of that and said, "It's not quite what I'm seeing." And so she put pen to paper and wrote the Dawn method.
So she's reading about dementia, and when she's reading this research, she's saying, "Not my experience." What kinds of things did she see that were not playing out in the people she knew?
So much of the narrative around dementia is it's all loss. It's loss. They're losing their skills. They're losing their themselves. Their personalities changing. Those things are true, but it's not the whole story. The whole story is that, yes, they lose 3 primary, really important cognitive skills, but they also keep 3 really important skills. And she did a lot of research in neurology, psychology, studied a lot of Ellen Langer's mindfulness, and realized, hey, yes, there's loss, but wow, there are these strengths that we can support the losses, we can equip the strengths, we can get out of the way of them using their strengths. And she took this dynamic, and then she realized that because of skill losses, now you have people whose emotional needs haven't changed. They haven't gone away. They still need, as a human being, to feel safe, to feel a sense of control, to feel like they have a place in social situations, to feel like they have value. Those needs haven't gone away. But now, because of the particular skills they're losing, it's harder for them to bring for themselves meeting those emotional needs. So that the Dawn method is 7 tools to meet the emotional needs of people experiencing dementia.
So I want to go back to when Judy was working with these neighbors and had no training in how to work with people who are having memory issues. How did she discover this?
Yeah, well, she's intelligent, but she also is intuitive. And our intuitive skills are our number 1 first cognitive skill. It's the ability to take in information. It's the ability to feel our feelings. It's our stress responses. So she used her skills of intuition, observation to observe and watch the patterns. Patterns in how people did things, how people struggled, and also patterns in how they responded to what she did. to what she said.
So she intuitively took a different approach. And maybe that's partly because she didn't have medical training telling her how to treat them. Is that what, does she believe that's part of it?
Yeah, she makes quite a distinction between medical model and experiential model. And medical model is lovely if you have cancer, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, stroke. Medical model is, we got a problem, we're going to diagnose it, we're going to treat it, we hope to cure it, get you back to your regular life. People who have knee replacements do rehabilitation because we want to get them back to having a knee that works well. But dementia is a progressive condition.
Right.
The goal is not to get people back to being able to do what they can do. And so the medical model still looks at dementia as, well, we can't fix it, but what pill can we give to remedy it? Some people believe that they have some value. But the Dawn method is, we've got to meet them where they are with what they are experiencing, because they're the experts. And we need these tools to create a dementia supportive experience of the world, because those stress responses are still there. And if we have a way to relate that is in conflict with their abilities, we will have conflict.
Right.
They get a stress response.
Caregiver gets a stress response.
But they have diminished capacity based on the skills they're losing to figure out how to deal with that stress. And that's where we get what everybody thinks dementia is. All the aggressive, hitting behaviors, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the medical model is trying to bring the dementia patient back to how they were before they started suffering cognitive loss. And that's not ever going to happen with the medication that we have right now. So instead, it sounds like what you're doing is to look at what's still left and how do we keep the person feeling safe, feeling like they have control, the things that they need to be able to not go into stress as frequently. Am I following that right?
You are. And, the goal with a lot of the medications now is to prevent decline. And that's a worthy goal. People ask me, what do you think of dementia medications? I say, well, there's a time and a place. But what I see is when we can create an environment with lower stress, all of us, when we're stressed, our brains don't function as well. So we shouldn't be surprised then that when somebody has dementia and they're stressed, their brain's going to function even more poorly. So when we create this environment that works with their changing skills and their emotional needs, their stress is lower, they function at their highest. I had no idea when I started learning the Dawn method with my grandmother as my inspiration that I would need to use it with my dad. My dad is my grandmother's son. So about 2020, probably, we noticed changes cognitively. 2021, 2022, he has a couple of pretty significant TIAs, affected his speech. By 2020...
Explain what a TIA is. Is that a mini stroke?
Mini stroke.
Okay.
Transient ischemic attack. Right. Transient because you have the mini stroke, and then oftentimes the symptoms clear.
Okay.
But his skills were changing, and by mid-2022, it is becoming pretty clear that his wife, my gift mom, is having some stress. And she had learned the Dawn method, which was great, but I figured, okay, it's time I start to step in. So they live in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I spent most of 2023, 2024 managing my dad's care, providing his care, supporting my gift mom, arranging extra care, that kind of thing.
I really like that gift mom. I haven't heard that one before. That's beautiful.
Yeah, well, she's my stepmom, and she's far too lovely to have any negative connotation of stepmom. So
yeah, not like Cinderella's.
Right. So I call her my gift mom.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so you stopped working and moved to Lincoln, you said?
I kept working.
Oh, okay.
Fortunately, I have an amazing team here that they're very capable. So they continued caring for the families we get to spend time with here. We narrowed our work. I do a lot of teaching and consulting and coaching remotely, so I was able to continue that. But I was driving back and forth. I'd check on our families and our clients and my team, and then I'd go back, and then it was just more and more and more that I was in Lincoln.
Gotcha. And so what did you experience with both your gift mom and with your father during those couple of years?
Well, it was interesting. At one point, I thought, I need to write a book on entering someone else's retirement.
Oh, interesting way to put that.
Right, because I'm not retirement age, but my parents were. And so here I found myself, my dad wasn't driving, taking him to his cardiac rehab where we did his exercises together, and taking him and going with him to his men's group at church, and going with them to their lunch bunch, and driving her to her hair appointments. And it was like I was living the life of a retiree with them. So that surprised me. It also taught me about the difference between, I think, a spouse caregiver and adult child caregiver.
Tell me more about that.
Well, as adult children, in my situation anyway, and what I've observed is pretty common, is as somebody gets older, their skills decline, kids start stepping in more. So we begin re-entering the life of this parent, and we maybe haven't had a regular presence in their life for decades. So we re-enter their life, and then when that season is over, we re-enter our own life more fully.
Yes. And I'm curious to hear more about re-entering their lives, because I'm wondering what hurdles pop up there that you may have observed either in your own situation or with clients.
It's always complicated. There are always family dynamics. Never mind the fact that you have this loved one that was your parent, and now you're taking on more and more of the parenting role. And, I found I needed to deal with that. Even doing what I do every day with families here, it was different being a adult child caregiver myself. And I grew up in Lincoln, and I left when I was 20, and I lived other places. And that was 1990 when I left. So all those years, of course, I visited frequently, that kind of thing, but I was living in their world again. And I didn't expect that. It was surprising. The other thing is just living between two lives. And we've heard the term sandwich generation. You got your own life, your own family to take care of, and here you're taking care of your parents. And I didn't view it that way. My kids weren't small children at the time, but I definitely was living between two lives. And at sometimes that was a uncomfortable straddle and a difficult straddle. But I wouldn't trade 1 second. And I'm so grateful that I knew the Dawn method, because it was smooth, it was peaceable, and, my dad lived well. We helped him live well, we helped him finish well.
Tell me some stories about how you used the method with your dad and also with your gift mom so that she could be the best support to him and she could thrive.
Yeah, I did a lot of coaching with her. One of the strengths people keep is, we call it the tool of mindlessness. And part of that is muscle memory.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Basically, our bodies know how to move through space and do certain things because we've done it over and over and over and over for years. That's one of the biggest values of keeping people in their own home as they get older and as they have dementia.
Because they know how to turn on the coffee pot and they know how to do those kinds of things. Is that what we're talking about?
They know how to get themselves dressed.
Okay.
But I knew that one of the skills that's lost in dementia is sequencing. It's the ability to go step by step through a process. So that's very important when we think about getting dressed. That's why sometimes you see people with dementia who have mismatched socks or they have underwear on the outside of their clothes. Things aren't done right. It's a sequencing problem. Mm-hmm. It's not because they're crazy. It's not because they're defiant. They just are having less ability. So in the Dawn method, we talk about leaving things the same as how they do things, but in dressing, as they start to struggle with sequencing, layering their clothes in the order in which they would get dressed.
Okay.
So this was a big deal for my dad because he had a very particular way he put his clothes when he took his clothes off to get ready for bed. His button-down shirt was here with a white t-shirt on top of it. His underwear were hung here in a little open drawer that he shut. His socks and shoes were here. His pants were hung over this chair. And so I coached her. We leave everything the same. As he needs more help, as this capacity decreases, we put the things he takes off in those same places. And in the morning, he still could get up and get himself dressed until, I don't know, the last 3 weeks of his life.
Last 3 weeks.
Because we set him up to be able to use his muscle memory. We call those tools sacred.
That's huge. I'm thinking back to when you were working in the assisted living facility as an occupational therapist. Were you in a memory care center?
I was assisted living, independent living, memory care.
Okay, so you did work with residents who had memory issues as well during that?
The majority of residents in most senior communities, even independent living, have memory issues.
Okay. Yeah. So when you're working with folks in the mainstream system, when would you see that they would, how long before the end of their life would they stop being able to dress themselves appropriately?
One of the things we do is we help too much. And that's one of the things that I coached my gift mom in. I said, I know it's really, really hard to watch Papa struggle to get himself dressed, but it's meaningful to him. So if you can't handle the struggle and you're tempted to step in and help, just don't go down to his room when he's getting dressed. And so one of the things in a facility is staff is stretched thin and they have all these people to get ready for breakfast, so they can't allow somebody the time to go through the process of getting dressed. So we help too much and we end up incapacitating people. We end up disabling them. They decline oftentimes more quickly.
So it would be unheard of for someone to be still dressing themselves up to 3 weeks before their life ends in one of those facilities, it sounds like.
I mean, I wouldn't say unheard of, but it would probably be pretty rare. And, if we could even teach people to set somebody up in the right way and then leave, go work with your next person and give them time. The reality is folks need more time, but we just don't quite know how to do that just yet. Yeah, in general.
Well, that must have been very rewarding for him to be able to keep that independence for so long. Did he see that as a positive for himself?
He did, because he would express frustration when he was less able. He was a writer professionally. And, through those years, we watched his ability to use the computer decline. He needed more and more support. So for him to be able to continue to do those basic things on his own, to us, that's no big deal, because to us, dressing's easy. For him, that was a big deal. One of my favorite stories is my friend Carol. She taught me about sequencing.
Okay.
So Carol lived here in Fort Collins, and one day I said, hey, come on, Carol, let's go get your socks and your shoes and your jacket, and we'll go out and see your ducks. She had cats, a dog, and ducks in her backyard, lovely backyard. And she just stood there. And then I thought, okay, she's having a hard time with sequencing. So I said, come on, Carol. So we went in her room. She sat in her glider, and I handed her a sock. And she put her foot up over her knee, put that sock on correctly, oriented the seam correctly, and handed her another sock. I didn't even say anything. And she did the same thing. Now, Carol was somebody who needed 24/7 care. She was very unable. Did the same thing with her shoe. She put the correct shoe on the correct foot, tighter laces, same thing with the other shoe. What that taught me was it was my approach that had to change to be a better match with her skills. Because if I had insisted, she stood there when I gave her all these steps, and if I had persisted in that way, she would have been frustrated. I would have been frustrated. She probably would have gotten angry, and mood would be ruined. But she was 100% successful, zero stress for either of us.
And then you could go enjoy the ducks.
We went and enjoyed the ducks. So those are the kind of things that the Dawn method taught me. That, okay, the reality is here are some skills that are going to change. They're less able. But when we understand how to partner with them in a way that's the right match, and in a way to use our mood, the way we use our nonverbals, it can be a companionable experience.
I feel like these skills or these tools could work really well even for people who aren't suffering from dementia. I just, my parents are in their mid to late 70s, and there's times when I find myself getting impatient. I think this is probably a dynamic when kids try to help their parents, that we go at our breakneck pace on whatever we're trying to help with, and it ends up creating stress and doesn't make the mood that we want it to be. So I'm curious, have you seen this work with people who don't have memory issues? Just we're coming from two different generations, and we're coming at two different speeds. Does it work there too?
Absolutely. In fact, what I've learned with the Dawn method has impacted all of my relationships. I've learned how to be slower, more patient. A big thing is more empathic. One of the things dementia has taught me is humans don't typically, if they're about 12 years old and older, they don't need somebody else solving their problems. What they need is somebody willing to listen and to join them in it and share their emotion. So yes, that when we step in with our tornado pace, because we're a little more capable with technology and the things we need to do to get things done, and we step in, it erodes our loved one's dignity, it erodes self-esteem, it erodes relationship. And furthermore, when we do that, when we bring our stress, we stay stressed, and they get stressed.
Yeah, nothing good comes of it. And I still find myself doing that. So what would you tell someone as to how to break that cycle?
I'm going to jump in for just a quick second. I want to share a playful tool I developed just for you. Are you unable to enjoy the special moments you create as much as you'd like? Do you sometimes feel like you aren't as happy as you think you should be? If so, the simple 5-minute quiz will help you discover the pattern that's blocking you from the freedom and peace that you deserve. I also give you one simple practice you can start using today. Once you know what holds you back, you can be on the path to feeling better in your everyday life, moment to moment. The quiz is available in the link in the description below. I'm so glad you're here.
So what would you tell someone as to how to break that cycle?
Well, I guess I'll share a story
I would love to hear a story.
that my dad taught me. So he never used an assistive device, no cane, no walker, that kind of thing. Most people with dementia, if they don't have a mobility issue, they don't have mobility issues until far into the journey. And by then we try to introduce a cane, a walker. They're not going to know how to use it safely. But anyway, because of that, we do a lot of what we call hand over hand, where I grab their arm, grab their hand, kind of cup their hand, and I pull them in tight to my side. And now they're tight against me, I'm tight against them, and away we go. But because of that, it forces me to slow down.
You have to walk his pace.
You have to walk his pace. And one day, my dad and I are walking into his cardiac rehab, and I tend to zzz, and I'm arm in arm with him, and I slowed my motor down. And it was really, really good for me. And so as far as advice,
Well, tell me what was really good about slowing your motor down.
I cause my own stress. I think most of us do.
Bingo. Right? Yes, I know that's true.
Right. And when you think about it, why? I mean, I still do it every day, but the moments I share with my companions experiencing dementia are so incredibly therapeutic for me. But it's only because the tools of the Dawn method taught me the right way to enter into that relationship, build relationship, so that that person views me as this nice companion. So when I'm locked in with them, meaning the thing about dementia is that they lose memory skills. That's our connection with the past. They lose rational thinking skills like sequencing. That's our ability to anticipate and do things, be productive in the future. So those two areas are no longer their strength. But what is their strength? Right here. Two cognitive strengths. One is intuitive. They can still take in information. Two is experiential learning. They're experiencing everything. If they were sitting here with us right now, they'd be experiencing the feel of your sofa, our calm voices. And I think they would feel like this represented happy times. So when I get to spend time with people experiencing dementia, I need to cut myself off from my cognitive clutter of the past and the future. And I need to be right here with them. And when I do that, I can spend 2 solid hours looking at a Swiss colony catalog with my friend who's 94 and a half and enjoying every little bit about it. The prices, oh my goodness, can you believe 9 little pieces of Pettifor candy are $34.95. I'm using my intuitive skills to notice and draw her intuitive skills to what's interesting, what's beautiful, what's meaningful. And in those 2 hours with her, I am getting a break from all my own cognitive clutter. Wow. It's amazing. I think it's life-saving. And when I can teach caregiver, especially caregiver spouses, how to do this, not all day. I don't know a caregiver spouse who can do this all day, because as a caregiver spouse, they're caring for their loved one, they're doing the bookkeeping, they're doing the lawn care, they're caring for the house, they're trying to hold up relationships with kids. It is a lot. But if they can take 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day, and be locked in, enjoying something with their loved one, 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day, sometimes the break that's needed to help them make it through the long haul.
Wow. 5 minutes 2 or 3 times a day, I'm just thinking if I choose to spend 5 minutes 2 or 3 times a day being more present, what that could do for me. And how would you suggest someone who isn't in proximity with someone that's uh, experiencing dementia do that? I mean, it sounds like a simple question. Like, of course, we should all be able to figure out how to be present for 5 minutes 2 or 3 times a day. But do you have any thoughts on how to do that?
Well, it's so interesting because one of the primary skills people experiencing dementia lose is attention skills. They lose 3 of their 5 attention skills: ability to maintain, direct, and redirect. So they're, easily distracted by things that they see, hear. But we have our attention skills. And really, that's what meditation is all about. It's us using our attention skills to focus on something or nothing. So therefore, if we say, okay, I'm going to use my attention skills to focus on something that brings me joy, meaning, and I am going to, on purpose, choose to not attend to things of the past, what happened 2 hours ago, what you need to fix for dinner, what you need to buy for Christmas presents, what you need to buy for your son's birthday. If we can take a few minutes and focus in on those things that we find meaningful, joyful, beautiful, it's a break.
Could it be as simple as my husband and I take 5 minutes to walk around the backyard and look at everything that's beautiful?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's hard for us to do. Judy has a really good illustration of being with a friend at the botanical garden. There was a beautiful flowering tree. She and her friend stood there, and her friend was in rapt attention. And Judy was looking and thinking about all this cognitive clutter stuff. And she realized, I'm missing out on so much of the beauty of this tree because I'm allowing myself to be distracted by the skills that she doesn't have now.
Right. So actually, her companion was having a better experience.
That's exactly right.
And so that makes my heart feel good to think that when we look at people that we're scared that they don't have a quality of life, we're scared that they're less than, that's not necessarily the case at all. They may be more than we are.
We believe, my team and I, that we get to experience the people we spend time with in the very best version of themselves before life messed them up. Because we get to bring to them good times, happy times, meaningful joy, beauty. And in those moments, we are 2 people together enjoying what's beautiful, joyful, meaningful, etc. And it's pretty amazing to be able to do that most days. I mean, there are a lot of days where you're like, whoa, we know we're still responsible for the well-being of this person that we're spending time with, but it is companionable for us as well.
I like hearing that.
Yeah, this is when I teach the Dawn method for families, for caregivers, for communities, but especially spouse caregivers. I say in the coming weeks, I'm going to teach you the tools to meet the emotional needs of your loved one experiencing dementia. And I'm going to help you understand what they are experiencing. And this method is going to help them experience less stress, less frustration, more comfort. And in the process, you are learning how to save yourself as a caregiver. Because if they can lower the stress in the environment with these tools, it's lower stress for the companion, but lower stress for them. And we hear so much about, caregivers, they end up with heart disease and dementia and strokes and cancer. And I don't dispel the statistics. It's hard. It was hard for me as a adult child caregiver, even knowing what I know. However, it had tremendous meaning. And what I've heard spouse caregivers say is, why would I not care for my wife with Lewy body disease? I'm a recovering human in this process. I've learned more about life in this journey with my spouse than I've ever learned before. We had one daughter who said, every person should have the chance to take care of their parent. It can be beautiful and it'll change your life. And one wife, she said, when my parents got older, I watched their life get harder and harder and worse and worse. But my life with my husband experiencing dementia, because of what I'm learning with the Dawn Method, my life's getting better and better. Easy? No. I don't want to infer that the dementia journey is easy. Nope. But neither is anything in life that's a deviation from perfection. There are many hard things in life. But when we understand how to work with dementia, it doesn't have to be harder than a lot of things out there.
I'm thinking about, I know you have a grandson coming into your life in the next couple of months, and your son and daughter-in-law are first-time parents. And so this is a big change that they'll be experiencing. I'm wondering how this method could help them in parenting, because you think about things that are hard. Well, having a newborn, I'm sure, is very hard. So how would you, if they asked you for advice on how to be the best parents and to enjoy parenthood as much as possible, what would you tell them from what you've learned through working with people experiencing dementia?
I don't know if I'll get the chance to tell them that, but what I will get to model is that process of focusing on the moments that I have and disconnecting myself from the worries. Now, I suspect that's one of the things about being a grandparent versus a parent. Mm-hmm. Everybody says you have your grandchild, you get to take them home. I get that, but that's one thing I wish I had done better as a mom, is spend more time. I did a good job, but spend more time just locked on with my kids. Kids don't need 24/7 care and parenting. They don't need 24/7. They need the right attention in the right moments, presented in the right way. And that's exactly what people experiencing dementia need. In fact, Judy points out, we really already know how to care for people experiencing dementia because we've raised children as a civilization. Because we know if a 4-year-old runs up and says, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, where do babies come from?" we're going to give them a very different answer than we would to a 12-year-old who says, "Hey, Mom, come on, I'm old enough, give me the truth." The reason we give a different answer is because cognitive and emotional skills are different here when they're little than they are here when they are capable of taking that in. We have the exact same situation in dementia. We change the way we relate, we change the way we approach, because the skills and the emotional needs are now increasingly different from ours. So it's just another process of tweaking, changing, modifying how we relate.
That's beautiful.
It is. It's amazing. Yeah. And my journey with my dad, I had more profound conversations with my dad with advancing dementia in those 2 years than I ever had my entire life. I had more precious moments with him where he couldn't necessarily engage in a full conversation. His speech was particularly affected, but we knew, because we connected on that intuitive heart emotional level. And we connected. It was an incredible season in many ways.
So when people are looking to learn, now there's obviously you if they're in Northern Colorado, but there's people all over the world who need this help. How do they find this?
The best place is just to go to the Dawn Method website, which is thedawnmethod.com.
That's DAWN.
Correct. And the Dawn Method was developed for people caring for their loved ones with dementia at home. So she developed it at people's homes. It is being modified, not really modified, but it's being tweaked to be used in communal settings like assisted livings.
So this is getting out beyond just the people who choose to engage with it. It's starting to get into the broader community.
It is. It's been translated into Portuguese in Brazil. There's a Dawn Denmark now. There are several trainers around the world, around the country. So it is getting more exposure. But the Dawn Method is the right place to start. And I always tell people to go to the Families tab. And under the Families tab is what we call the Dementia Roadmap. And it's 8 different points that talk about how we are looking at dementia differently and how we're getting it right. So that's a good place to start. And then there are 3 ways to learn the Dawn Method. The beautiful thing about our world is I can teach the Dawn Method to anybody, anywhere in the country via Zoom. Now, I love it when I can spend time in that person's home.
Right.
But the fact is, the tools still work. The understanding is still relevant. No matter where somebody is in the journey, and no matter what disease or condition is causing the symptoms, the tools work. So it's pretty easy to learn. There are a couple of books, there's some online training, and then there's the Zoom training that we do with the trainers.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So when you think about what makes you happy, what comes to mind for you?
Oof, that's a big question. I love to run, and I started running when I was 13 with my dad.
Oh.
So that's special, something I hope to do. I plan to run till I'm 104, so we'll see.
Okay, 104. Why that number?
I don't know, just 104. I'm going to run a 5K, set a world record. I'm going to cross the finish line. My heart's going to stop, and it's going to be over.
That'd be lovely for it to end that way.
But really, people are what make me happy. Relationships with people. And it's pretty incredible. Just, Friday night, I met a new couple. I'd visited with the daughter, and dad is experiencing dementia and had what I call a meet and greet. We don't wear any name tags. We don't wear any insignia. I step in as a friend. In this case, I was a friend of his daughter. And we had 50 minutes of just visiting. I knew some things about his interests, so I could draw him into some conversation. And at the end, he goes, "Now feel free to stop back by."
Oh.
And that is incredible. To be a stranger in someone's home, to use the tools of the Dawn Method to make a person experiencing diminishing cognitive skills feel like this was a nice person that stopped over, and I'd like to see her stop over again. That is such a privilege. And that's actually how we begin to build care. Most people experiencing dementia don't have a full understanding of their deficits. They're never in denial. They don't have a full understanding, but they also want to preserve their dignity. And they don't want help. So we don't present it that way. And it works very well.
And how often will you get to see this gentleman now?
We always start slow. So in a couple of weeks after the holidays, I will be in their neighborhood and stop back by and have another companionable visit. And then I'll do that again a few days later, a week later. And then his wife and I will visit and create a scenario where one time I'm there, where it looks like he feels safe with me. She will have a situation where she needs to run to the grocery store, or she needs us to run to the grocery store. So the other thing too is we need to help caregiver spouses feel safe with us in their home. For a lot of people, this is the first time they've ever had a helper come across their threshold. But then we just create scenarios where we're with the person experiencing dementia. Then that caregiver spouse begins to go do things. The goal is for us to bring such good dementia supportive sensory and social stimulation in a variety of ways that while the caregiver spouse gets off duty time, and when they re-enter, sometimes they just go to a different part of the house, but when they re-enter, their loved one has their cup filled with good stuff, they're happily tired, they're in a good mood, and so now we've accomplished a whole lot for the rest of the day for that caregiver spouse. So we build slow, we build very skillfully, and that's how we build sustainable care. We've had some people that we've had the privilege of caring for 6.5 years.
Not only does the person experiencing dementia get to have that joy, the caregiver gets to have that joy, the family members get to have that joy, how it really is a multiplying effect. And that's what we all want.
It's a hard journey, but we can make it a bit better. We can't solve everything, but we can make it a bit better. And a ship with a 1 degree change in direction ends up in a different place. And that's what we want. We want caregivers and families to arrive at the end of their loved one's journey and feel good about it and not be absolutely spent, worn out. And we do see that happen.
Is there anything that you'd like to share that we haven't asked yet?
People call us because they need help. And pretty quickly, it's clear that what they really need is hope. They need hope that there is help. They need hope that there's a way that this can be okay, that it's not so scary. And the other thing is just the concept of hospitality, that we try to create a situation. I heard hospitality defined as when the people on the outside feel like they're on the inside. And that's what we get to do every day. So when I'm out in community with my companion who has a stuffed dog that she is 100% sure is real because of some of her changing skills, I am walking proud that here I am. She has very advanced dementia. She's still a human. She still wants to have dignity. She still wants to do things that feel normal and feel good, and we can help that happen.
Thanks for joining me today on Unexpected Happiness. If anything we talked about felt familiar, be sure to check the notes for this episode. I've listed the resources mentioned in the description. And before you go, I want to leave you with a simple next step. Do you ever wonder why your life doesn't feel as good as it should? On paper, things are fine. But yet, inside, you might feel stressed, guilty, a little bit on edge. If that sounds familiar, I made something that can help. This isn't about fixing you, it's about understanding you. It's a short, free quiz that helps you spot the pattern that might be quietly draining your happiness, even when nothing is really wrong. You can take it now at unexpectedhappiness.net/quiz.